The original version of this video was uploaded to Jason Verney's YouTube channel, where it and many other videos, podcasts, snippets and films can be found. That channel can be found at youtube.com/Jason Verney. This is the Not So Korean podcast. I am Jason Verney. As you probably know, we started this podcast back in 2021 and used to record this live in UK's Koreatown itself. That's an area in and around New Malden. Yes, that's the largest Koreatown and Korean community in Europe. These days, we bring you such episodes and therefore information and interviews from various places in the world, including Korea itself. So this little episode, sort of on the fly, on a hill in Korea, in the city of Daegu, is about, yes, you've guessed it, Daegu. Now, Daegu, by some people who live in Seoul, Seoulites, maybe it gets left off the map. That said, a few friends of mine come from Daegu, even though they might live in Seoul, or maybe their family is from Daegu. And I first went to Daegu, perhaps, I think it was 2013. The reason I say that is because 2012 was my first trip to Korea. Yes, I know, I remember it. I'm pretty sure it wasn't that. It was a bit of a sort of fast sort of whirlwind couple of weeks. The first time I went to Korea in 2012, but in 2013 I made 2 visits to Korea, and that's when I would say I would explore more. I think that's when I went to Gyeongju and Daegu. I will say Busan as well, but Busan I did go to in 2012. So 2013 was not only my second time visiting Seoul, of course, because that's where people tend to arrive, but it was also my second time going to Busan, but also it was my second time going to the Busan International Film Festival. But Daegu, it was, I suppose it was a fleeting visit, 2 or 3 nights. I don't remember too much about it. I've got some photos. I think there was a tea festival that I stumbled across, and I've got some footage and photos from that. And I thought that was actually Gyeongju, but thinking about it, Gyeongju has all the Shilla Kingdom sort of mounds and hills and sort of burial grounds. And Daegu, I don't remember much. I do fondly remember the station. I don't know if it was the bus station or the train station. And again, was it Daegu station? If it was the train station, was it Dongdaegu? Now, I can't remember how new Dongdaegu station is. So essentially, if you get the KTX from Seoul, which is usually Seoul Station as opposed to Yongsan or somewhere, I believe, you will then, if you take the KTX as opposed to maybe the ITX or the other slower trains, you will arrive in Dongdaegu, and I suppose therefore it's a KTX, essentially a KTX station. So on this second trip, that is what I did. This we are now we are sort of the autumn of 2025, and so it's about 12 years since my last visit to Daegu, so I don't remember much. It's a bit like when I returned to Chiang Mai about 3 years ago, and I hadn't visited there for 17 years or 15 years or something, but there was memories, but not a lot of memories of that fleeting visit, whereas now, immersing myself in Chiang Mai, I've got more memories already. So Daegu this time, why did it happen? And nothing wrong with Daegu. I'm just saying that it's just somewhere I left off the map, and I've got a good friend here, and who occasionally, begs me to come here, but she's also a friend one of those friends who sort of does her best to come and visit me when I come to Korea. So if I'm going to Busan. She gets on the train and comes to spend a day or a couple of days in the same city while I'm there, and in Seoul. And she's also been at one of my screenings when I had my film Reparation, my 30-minute drama. I think it was 2022, and I after doing a screening in Jochiwon and Sejongsi, so down south quite a little bit, she met me in Seoul, and we had a couple of friends screenings. So I played a small venue, but 2 different nights of the same film, because I wanted to say I've shown it in Seoul to my friends there, and she helped me sort of set that up, and she was just there as kind of moral support, and she's a good friend, as I've got lots of good friends in Korea. Now I'm just walking down a little strip here, sort of a pathway, and I thought I was going uphill to a temple area, but I'm kind of going down again now. But I'll find out in a second exactly where I am. I just saw the name, but just need to read it again. Why am I here? Well, basically, there's someone I know from, my gosh, probably 13 years ago or 12 years ago or something. Again, that significant length of time away and before is, similar to when I came to Daegu the first time. But I used to go to a lot of art exhibitions in London, and some of those were small galleries, some of them were large and more sort of famous, and the Korean Cultural Centre as well. And there was a collective of people and artists that I met, and I would I would sort of support them and go and see them and their work whenever I could. So not just the once, I probably would see them again. I always try to do that once. I mean, that time was a big learning curve for me, because I was learning about Korean artists, the style. I wasn't massive art, critic, or I hadn't studied art or anything, but Korean art was fascinating to me, because obviously it was the fact that there were so many Korean and are so many Koreans in London. That was a eye-opening thing in itself. The movie is what first did it for me with Korean culture, and then came whatever was going on in London, and with that there was and there still is some, a few art galleries, I suppose, that are curated by Koreans, have Korean artists, and some of them even have, I think, sort of international artists curated by Korean places. But anyway, one person I met, she sometime around that time, she also set up the 10AAA, so I think it's Alpha Art Association, and there was somebody I knew at the KCC who was always also an artist and involved with arts, therefore, and she was one of these many artists that I was kind of following and supporting, I suppose. By the way, I know where I am. It's called Duryu Park, and I think that is because the Duryu temple is on the way further up. I just stopped to look at this big sign. There is a big tower that I'm quite near to here in Daegu. Now, so if you know Daegu, and it is a massive place. If you know, there's sort of what they call, I think it's called the 83 Tower, but it's a tower which I have not been to yet. I've got less than 24 hours left here. In fact, I've probably got about 12 hours left, because I had to book an earlier train to get back to Seoul. But that's me being a bit slow booking my KTX, and they do sell out fast. So I've had to take a really early one tomorrow, earlier than I wanted to get to Seoul. But what I was going to say was, I'm going to wander that way. I might not get that far. Got my laptop on my arm in a little bag that my friend, who's Hmong, she's from the Hmong tribe in Chiang Mai, has made me, and it's a really cute little bag that I'm happy to say is now having its first Korean experience. Bringing some sort of Hmong Thai-ness into Korea. Not the first person to do that, I'm sure, but so I'm walking towards this temple area. I don't know what I'm going to find. But when I came this particular time, so bring us back to that person I was talking about, the curator. Yovi Song is her name, although she's got more than one name, really. And I realised on her social media posts, she was posting about the photo biennale in Daegu. But I also noticed that good friend that I mentioned earlier, that other friend, she was also not promoting so much, I suppose, but showing that she was working there. And I thought, I've got two friends in Daegu. Because this curator, she does also work with London as well, but she's based, quite a lot of the time in Korea and Daegu. And so I suddenly realised I've got two friends down here. There's another person I wanted to meet, but that hasn't happened. She's a filmmaker, a Korean filmmaker who I met who I've seen her film once or twice, a couple of times at the Busan International Film Festival. But anyway, so I was trying to decide what to do with my time. This is a very short visit in Korea, about 9 days, 9 nights, let's say, about 10 days. And I'll tell you a bit more why I was here, but you'll probably, some of you might know that. But the main reason to be in Korea, I'll mention towards the end. So Daegu, I have 3 days or so left before I have to go back to Chiang Mai, which is now kind of my base for at least half of the year, much of the year. And, I've kind of been on this, I've been here 2 nights, and I've been on this sort of roller coaster, not literally, roller coaster ride of meals, meeting artists. Had a lovely Indian meal last night, but a lot of different, artist friends and locations that perhaps I wouldn't have known about. And I have to thank these people for this because, I was unsure if I should come to Daegu. I was thinking of going to somewhere like Gangwon. I've got a sort of a new interest now in Gangwon-do area, and I want to do a bit of research there for a film I'm writing, and I want to go there. So I was going to go to Sokcho and a place that I thought, and also the other thing is when you come to, and I'm going to do an episode, I think, about accommodation in Korea, but if you spend a night or 2 or 3 or however many in Seoul, you can go outside to Busan or here in Daegu or Sokcho or all these places and probably get double the size of the room for your money, the space, and you just get genuinely better value for money, I would say, outside of Seoul. And even if you class Gyeonggi-do, which is kind of part of the outskirts of Seoul, you're going to get better value. But I just think that if I'm going to spend that money, but bear in mind I already had 6 nights in Seoul, 3 of those taken up by the certain event which I'll mention towards the end. I just thought, let's do it. Let's go and meet them. Let's see my friend who's always making an effort for me when I come to Korea, and also tie it in with this person who is involved with the same huge event at the Daegu Arts Centre. I'll put a link in the description of this probably, but by the time this airs, the exhibition might be sort of over, but I'm just really, this is not necessarily to promote that, this is to say how I'm thinking about Daegu on this second visit. And a few things to note, I think the last time I came, I took 1 or 2 buses, if that, to get places. I didn't take metros, but I have on this trip once or twice. I've been to sort of the central, what some people compare it to like Oxford Street, London, but of course it's nothing like that in so many ways. But also it is the centre. Jongdong now, I don't want to say it wrong, but Jongdang no. And I went to the Daegu Museum. There's a lot of politics. Daegu's known for being, some ways, more conservative. Its involvement with the Korean War was not so much. It was a different involvement to, other parts of Korea, or certain other areas of Korea. It was involved, but maybe in a different way. And its political leanings, let's just say stereotypically or largely, are not a very. There's conservative, and there's certain things that. People, you might go to a museum, it might tell you certain facts, it might not tell you everything, like it might not tell you what happened in Gwangju, like it might not tell you the issues that are happening at the same time with the leader at the time, sort of the president, and those in charge in Korea. So, you might get contrasting information, or just information that's not quite the same as recorded in museums in, for example, Seoul. So that I went to a museum about Daegu's, I think was it recent history, but it was the historical museum, and I went down a sort of famous, it's like a shoe street where you get shoes fixed, but I think where it's known for buying shoes. It reminded me a bit like in Sumyeon, in Busan and other places where you have like a book street. But I was also looking for the old castle remains of Daegu, which I saw on this tourist map. So they do get quite a few tourists coming here. I was given a whole load of maps. I didn't have enough time to do much because, as I say, I've been having a few meals with artists, exchanging thoughts about the world and also about art and food and everything, and Daegu itself, and London, and things that we've got in common maybe. So I what am I trying to say? Basically, I went to that centre area, and while I was there, of course, me being sort of keen and passionate about tragedies, disasters in Korea, I had to this time check out, seeing as this time I was using the metro system as opposed to walking, buses, taxis, whatever it might have been the first time, I had to check out the 218, so the 18th of February, this was a few decades ago, there was a metro, so a tube, we would say tube in the UK, but a metro carriage station fire which killed almost 200 individuals. So I went there and I just spent a bit of time there documenting it and just thinking and just wondering about it. And so that was some of my time that day spent there. But this time, Daegu, I've been taxied around, not in a taxi, although I might be taking a taxi tonight, to another art fair on my last sort of hour or so of this evening before I go for a meal with my friend. But I haven't, I've been when I say taxied about, I've been having lifts with these good friends, and maybe I'm going to remember this city more this time, even though it's only a total of 3 nights, and I've only done 2 nights so far. But using the metro system can help navigate in any city, and I just mean you just know the whereabouts. You just have to look at the line to go, oh, that's over there, that's over there. Whereas when you get buses, yes, you can follow the map, the numbers, but not necessarily put it in sort of you can't sort of contextualize where you are in a city. But when you see it on the map, you go, oh yeah, I need to go back on that line to go back there. So that was, that's something this time around that's different. And I'm staying, as I say, in the art centre. There's a hotel, and I'm going to speak more about accommodation in another episode because, so this is my 12th trip to Korea. I've got 13 years of experience of coming to Korea, but also staying at hotels, motels, goshwons, temple stays, hanok stays, and I'd like to discuss it because on this trip, although it's a short sort of 9-night trip in total, I've touched on various bits and also little things that I've noticed that are good and bad about accommodations in Korea. So right now I can see this cable car that's going from the big tower, whatever it's called, 83 Tower perhaps, but it's I'm not sure if I'm going to go on that. I'm just seeing the tower from here, and I'm going to keep walking to see where this temple is. It looks like I'm still aiming towards it because there's a crowd of people walking. It's a Saturday, by the way, and so Sunday evening, about 27 hours from now, I'll be getting my flight back to Chiang Mai, Thailand. But in about 12 hours, I would probably say I'll be getting up, about 14 hours, be getting up for an early train. And leaving Daegu. But this time, I've spoken to the people that, one of these friends of mine, she's from Daegu. The other friend, less so, but she's based here for a long time, really. So she knows quite a bit about Daegu, and also the art scene. And even I was looking at seeing the Korean film, which I'm probably now going to catch in Seoul before I get my flight tomorrow, is The World of Love. Now, there's a director called... It's doing the rounds in Korea. It's a great Korean film, apparently, and I'm saying apparently because I think it will be great. But the director, she made The World of Us. She also made a short called Sprout. She's made another follow-up to The World of Us, or the other way around. I forget which way around it was. And I want to see that while I'm in Korea. Sure, there's also Park Chan-wook's film I haven't seen, but I know I would catch that somewhere else, and I'd rather see this other one, which is more indie. I'd probably still class as indie in Seoul, tomorrow when I go back, because as I'm getting this crazily early train, or earlier than I wanted, I might as well try to do it there before I get my flight. So, sorry, back to Daegu. So now I'm standing over a sort of a big amphitheatre area, which not quite looks down from the tower, but I'm sure if you stand in the middle of that, you can see the tower. I'm going to keep walking now while I talk a bit more about Daegu, but not too much, from this second experience. I'm never meant to leave it off the map, Daegu. Maybe I didn't have great fond memories, but I do. My memories of somewhere going on a second visit can always be, of course, they can be enhanced. The first visit is, well, it depends. If you base yourself somewhere for a month, you might have brilliant memories. If you base yourself for a couple of days and then do it again the following year, that's when it's going to have more effect. So, yeah, it's been a strange trip. So I'll probably, Daegu now, I'm walking down here. It's a lovely... The other advantage of coming down south and not quite as far as Busan, which is what I often do, and definitely not Jeju this time. I haven't got time. I often come to Korea for a month and a half or a month. This time it's 9-10 days. Haven't really had time to think. Carrying my laptop now, and even now I've not really sat down and done much work on it because, there's things to do. But on the flip side, when I stayed in Busan for about 4 weeks last year, I felt like I had time on my hands, and I hadn't really properly put in motion that, believe it or not, that Seoul Ferry full-length documentary that I've made. Even a year ago, it was only a couple of segments, and I think around this time of year I really hadn't thought about it. And I think maybe my last week of Busan, I suddenly thought, oh, that's how I can do it. And so I've realized now, when I come to Korea, I want to be on the move, actually, but I also want to be exploring new places, which makes sense, and completely different places I've been to before. Of course, probably going to one of the places or two that I've been to before, like obviously Seoul, maybe Jeju, but it all depends on opportunities as well, because there's potential to collaborate with artists. I'm a filmmaker and video artist myself, and podcaster, so I do interviews about Korea, interview people, and each trip of mine is different. Sometimes I'm feeling it, sometimes I'm not, and I put some of that down to, and I might have mentioned this in a previous podcast, I put that down also to liking and feeling at home in Chiang Mai, Thailand. The longer I stay there, the longer I don't want to leave. And I don't mean, oh wow, it's an amazing place. I'm trying to make it my home. Whereas when I come to Korea from England, and I'm not going via Thailand or any other country like Vietnam. Vietnam I was in recently, loved Hanoi, hadn't been there for about 15 years. When I come from England, let's just say, and I go to Korea first. So that is the buzz. That is the thing, because I'm on my way to... Sometimes it's that way around. I'm on my way to Thailand or wherever, and therefore, leaving England, coming to any country, and especially Korea, where I've got lots of friends, people I know, and things I want to catch, places I want to see, etc. Then, of course, I'm not once I get back to Thailand and settled into the place I want to be my home, that I will also say this, what's been on my mind, especially on this short trip, there's various things that have come up in conversation, not just Daegu but in Seoul as well. If I have a project here and someone was commissioning me to do some work, or we were collaborating in some way, I would be happy to stay in a city like this for 2 weeks or a month, because to me that's all part of it, and especially if you have some kind of sponsorship or reason or accommodation helped, subsidized or whatever, of course you want to use that, you want to immerse yourself. So I suppose, I haven't spoke too much about Daegu itself, so I haven't seen too much in the last 48 hours, but I have seen, the memorial I mentioned, that train system. I've heard there's also the metro company has changed its name, or that particular station. I don't know what they. I can't remember what they were saying now, but it's changed its name, and that's obviously probably to distance itself from what happened all those years ago. And that sounds that it makes sense, really. And I don't know. I mean, maybe I'll have more insight on Daegu on my third trip, whenever that is. But let's just rewind a bit. And the beginning of this trip was the sole reason in Seoul to come to Korea. This time was that I was my film had been officially selected by the Seoul Whistler Film Festival. They're a film festival that do brilliant work. I've helped out with them before in the past, and kind of judge, jury. But because they do films, they select films that are to do with human rights and, hope and the fight for justice and all kinds of stuff like that, then I'm happy. I wasn't even certain they would select the film, but they did. My Seoul Ferry, which is SCWOL, Seoul, but I've also used the words to create Sealed Eternally with Our Love, because it's a tribute as an activist for the last, so rounding up things in the last 10 years, 10 trips in 10 parts, and that's how I'm kind of selling the film, if you like. If someone said to sum it up, it's a film that I say to people to not expect all the information that you might want to learn about the tragedy, because some people know about it. A lot of people do, especially every Korean knows about it, really. And there's been plenty of films made about it, mostly Korean ones, but not just. And this was not the reason for me making it. If that was the case, I would have started documenting it as a real filmmaker, like as an activist 11 years ago when I started. But instead, it was a recent thing following the footage I'd captured in Mokpo, which is where the ferry is, which has been there since 2017, so about 3 years after it happened. And I was straight down there in 2017. I had that footage, made some video art, sort of montage or documontage, I called it, and I didn't know what to do with it. And things evolved over the last few months, and I thought, wait a minute, there's a story here. There's 10 stories actually, if you include that, and an epilogue and an introduction. There's 10 stories that I have that relate to the Seoul Ferry. I've got more than 10 stories, but 10 significant parts. It's a 10-tale tribute. So I'm walking around this amphitheatre bit now, by the way, because I want to get a photo once I finish this episode, so I might not walk to the temple anymore. Such a lovely day, and I don't know if I mentioned this, I started to mention it, but Seoul has been icy cold. Well, not, I don't know if it's icy, but it definitely felt like that. 1 or 2 days while I was there, it went right down. And now I've come down south, and it was a little bit cold my first night, but today it's really proper autumnal, almost, spring-like, beautiful. And we're already creeping towards the evening, but it's lovely. And I think, of course that's a benefit to if you're going to spend 3 days somewhere, go somewhere a little bit, get better value for money. You've got. I had a reason. I've got these, friends here, artists of photo biennale related people and friends, and reunions really. And so back to the Seoul Whistler Film Festival was the reason I came over. Then I was going to go. This is the reason I stayed in Seoul for another 3 nights, and that is because the Itaewon Memorial of the terrible crush incident disaster that happened 3 years ago was having its memorial, of course, on the date that it happened. It did have another memorial on the Saturday before. It had various memorials, but there was the one on the 29th, on the official date. I wanted to be there. I also put my name forward to do a speech because last year I met... If you see my ferry film, you will see that it covers briefly the Itaewon incident situation, and you'll see that I was there last year for the memorial, but I didn't do a speech or anything. Got to know this person, one of the family members of one of the children, a person who lost their lives, and so I didn't want to go out of Seoul after the film festival, just for a couple of nights and rush back to Seoul for that. So I stayed in Seoul, but I made good value time by meeting friends. One of my Korean friends who I know from Chiang Mai, I've met her on a couple of her trips while I've been there, or while we've both been out and come back, and then I finally met her in Seoul. It's a bit like coming to Daegu and finally meeting the long-term Daegu friend, and having never actually met in her city before, only London and Busan and Seoul really. that's enough. But yeah, so but it's been interesting. Those three days of the film festival was good. The accommodation was certain thing, and then I moved to another particular area, which I'm going to cover that in another episode, as I say, about accommodation. And I think I'm also going to do a sort of an episode, a bit more detail about those 6 days in Seoul and a random meeting with somebody and some other things, and also some more information about this Daegu trip, because there's other stuff I can say, but it's not really necessarily... There's a couple of things that happen in Daegu here that I don't really need to mention on this particular Return to Daegu kind of podcast. So that's it. I've really been the last 2 days, and even today and tonight, I'm kind of what Yovi and my other friend has been saying. I'm a VIP here. They've been taking me everywhere, I've been meeting people. I've been sort of labelling myself, instead of a very important person, I've said, no, I'm a Verney important person. So less of the very. So Daegu, it's a great place. Lots of older people in certain areas. Of course, there's mixed. It's a city like anywhere else, but near the art centre, a lot of old people around there. That's because, I suppose some of it is they can get into the art space for free as a senior citizen, or OAP, as we might say in our country. And also there's some great woodland and a great sort of lake with this old style house on the river. Looks old. It's only about 30 years old apparently, which I learnt when I inquired about it. So that's it. Just some thoughts on Daegu. And I wasn't sure if I was going to come here, if I was going to stay for 2 nights or 3. It's going to be 3. Maybe it should have been 2 and I just head up to Seoul tonight. But I've got a place here. But I should just end with this actually as well. But you booking different accommodations is a nightmare in itself sometimes. It's fun to look for somewhere, but when you think you've got 1 night left, let's book somewhere in Seoul. It's like you got to trudge back up there, go to the place. It could be a brilliant place. It could be an average place. You've got to then find it, put your bags down, and repack and unpack, and you might as well keep it all in the place where you currently are, make this the 3rd night, and just go from there. Sure, I might go to the cinema. I might lug my baggage around tomorrow before I get my flight. But it does mean that I haven't had to mess about with that extra night. And also that was the reason why when I left Chiang Mai, I left purposely around about midnight on the Thursday. So let's say the Thursday night, the very early Friday morning, last week, because not necessarily to save a night's accommodation, but it did make sense because the festival were kind of sorting me out with 3 nights accommodation, and I didn't want to think, right, let's have one night first to get. I did think that, I could get settled. I did think about coming a couple of days early, but again, making use of my visa in Thailand as well, and the rent. I'm paying my rent there. Make the most of what I'm doing, my time there, and friends I've got there. And so I left, and I arrived, as I say, the morning of the Friday, which meant my accommodation would be waiting for me come sort of the afternoon, so I didn't have to sort of, book somewhere, stay for one night, then move out again and stay for 3 nights somewhere else. So that's what I've done both ends of this trip, really. But Daegu is also worth it, because if I go for a meal with my friend tonight, perhaps, and we don't finish till 10 or 11, I'm not going to get the train back that late. But I will have to get up early. So that's the price I'm paying now for not booking my train in advance. As in, even earlier today it would have been better, or even yesterday. Trains do fill up fast in Korea, especially the KTX. Actually, I think some of the others do as well. But yeah, the service in Korea for trains is brilliant. And compared to the UK, you can't cancel a ticket in the UK. You can get a refund here, and there might be a small, tiny percentage penalty, like 1 or 3%. But you can't, even in England, when you buy a ticket, generally, because it's privatised in the UK, the railway system, you basically, you lose your money. If you can't go, if you can't travel, if you miss your train. Whereas here, they're flexible. If I miss my train, I am a bit messed up, let's say, because the next one is much later unless there's a cancellation. But I'm going to be up early, get that train. Okay, that's it. That's reporting from Daegu. I'm liking it here. It would take me a lot longer to get used to Daegu. There's so much I haven't seen, and there's a lot that I almost saw as a tourist, like in the tourist maps. There's a lot of places I almost did, but 2.5 days so far, only 48 hours, with all these other things and meals and meetings and art exhibitions and memorial even. I just haven't been able to fit it all in, and I didn't want to rush. Okay, that's it. I'm going to leave you with the words that we've been saying for years since this podcast started, and 안녕히 계세요. Well, we hope you enjoyed that episode. So that's all from us. 안녕히 계세요. The original version of this video was uploaded to Jason Verney's YouTube channel, where it and many other videos, podcasts, snippets and films can be found. That channel can be found at youtube.com/Jason Verney.